All right, good afternoon, good evening, good night, Professor. Whenever you're watching this, or whoever's watching this, if my classmates are watching this, welcome. My name's Adam Logan, and this will be my NTSB case study into United Airlines Flight 232. I'm going to start off this presentation with a timeline of events, taking you through chronologically from when the airliner took off out of Colorado until when they had an engine fire and subsequently had to put the aircraft down at Sioux City, Iowa. Um, so we'll just go right into it. And then after the timeline, I'll talk through some things that they did good, things that they did not so good, recommendations moving forward, and then also diving into the NTSB investigation quickly after the crash. Okay. All right, so moving along in the timeline, so 1409 takeoff. So United Airlines Flight 232, this is a McDonnell Douglas DC-10 aircraft, as you can see depicted there. Um, the aircraft had 285 passengers on board during this flight on 19 July 1989. It also had 11 crew members, so it had a total of 296 personnel on board when it took off. It departed out of Stapleton International Airport out of Kaden, Colorado. Its destination was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it had an en route stop at Chicago, as you can see depicted on the this way on that photo with the aircraft. All right, 1516, number 2 engine failure. So roughly an hour and 7 minutes after departure, although departure, taxi, pushback, and all that, like I forgot to mention, it was just a routine day. Everything was going well. There was nothing to worry about. They were just ripping through what they normally rip through every day. And then an hour and 7 minutes after that, along their route of flight, they heard a loud bang or an explosion. They also felt vibrations in the fuselage and on the flight controls from the flight crew. At that moment, Captain Al Hayes was on board. He was the captain for that day, and he asked to start initiating the engine shutdown checklist. Um, unbeknownst to them, the number 2 engine had exploded in the back, and it had actually severed all 3 of their hydraulic lines that provided hydraulic control to all of the control surfaces on the DC-10. That is primarily why at this time as well, the first officer, his name was William Records. William Records had mentioned that he was in a right uncontrolled descending dive. At that moment, Al Haynes acknowledged transfer and took the controls from Records. And what he did is he reduced thrust in the number 1 engine. There was a number 1 and there was a number 3 engine that were still usable. They were both on the wings. The number 2 engine was on the tail, as you can see in the photo above in that DC-10 aircraft depicted above. But the number 1 and the number 2 engines were still usable, so he reduced thrust in the number 1, which controlled that right turn and leveled the wings. The person that recognized the hydraulic situation was actually the flight engineer, the second officer, as they would call him, Dudley Dvorak. He noticed that on the hydraulic instrumentation in the cockpit that the instrument levels were reading 0, which also confirms what the first officer was dealing with and subsequently what the captain dealt with when he took the controls. All right, moving into 1520, declaring an emergency. So around 1520, this is when the flight crew, primarily the captain, reached out to Minneapolis Air Route Traffic Control Center. As you can see on the high altitude high altitude IFR chart above that has the ARTC frequency. I didn't read anywhere in the NTSB documentation what frequency they use specifically, but I can just assume that based on where they were in the route of flight, they would have used 134.25. And they reached out to um, the ARTC Center, since they were, when they got connected with the controller had an alternate airport in mind off of Chicago that they could land at. But he also had noticed that the route of flight that they were taking was taking them to Sioux City. So he asked the captain if he wanted to proceed to Sioux City at that time. The captain, according to the NTSB investigation, acknowledged by saying affirmative. Um, with that confirmation, the controller began vectoring them, obviously, to get on a good glide path to fly into Sioux City Gateway Airport, or ICAO identifier Kilo Sierra Uniform X-ray. What I'll play next is an ATC recording of a controller handing off a United Airlines 232 to another controller, and also the captain getting on the net to kind of talk through the situation and the emergency that they were dealing with at the time.
We got an emergency for you. All right. I got a United aircraft coming in, lost number 2 engine, having a hard time controlling the aircraft right now. He's at a 29,000 right now and descending to Sioux City right now. He's to your VOR, but he wants the equipment standing by right now. Radar contact.
Okay, so you know we have almost no controllability. Very little elevator and almost no aileron. We're controlling the turns by power. I don't think we can turn right, but I think we can only make left turns. Well, we're starting a little bit of a left turn right now. I mean, we can only turn right. We can't turn left.
All right, 1529 cabin prepped and DC-10 check airmen. So during this time, Captain Haynes actually got on the public announcement system and announced to the passengers in the back of the emergency and the state of the emergency and the actions that they were taking to put the aircraft safely on the ground. He also called the senior flight director to the cabin, and he told the senior flight the senior flight attendant, to prep the cabin for an emergency landing. And she went back and did so, and she talked to some of the passengers to just reassure them that the flight crew had the situation under control. While she was talking to passengers, one of the passengers that came up on the net that wanted to go help with the situation was a man by the name of Dennis E. Fitch. Dennis E. Fitch was actually a United Airlines DC-10 training check airman, and he had been taking a look at the airons on the wings from his seat position, and he wanted to go up and offer some advice and just diagnose the situation with the captain. So the flight attendant went back to the cabin, told Captain Haynes that Dennis was on board. The captain later invited Dennis up to the cockpit to help with the diagnosing with the second officer or flight engineer and the first officer. Captain Haynes also, during this time at 1529, as you'll hear in an audio recording after this, he declared how much fuel he had on board and how many passengers were on board to ATC.
32 heavy, safe souls on board and fuel remaining.
We have 37.6 fuel and we're counting the souls.
All right, 1542, empennage inspection and elevator control. So during this time, Dudley Dvorak, the second officer or the flight engineer, made his way to the passenger cabin to inspect the empennage section of the DC-10. On the empennage, he was really inspecting the rudder, obviously, and the vertical stabilizer, and then on the horizontal stabilizer, he was looking for the elevator and trim and the horizontal stab itself. Once he got back from the passenger cabin and made his way back to the cockpit, he was able to inform Dennis, first officer, and the captain that he noticed on the left and right horizontal stabilizers that there was severe damage to those control surfaces. Highlighted in red, as you can see right here, this is United Airlines Flight 232 and the DC-10. You can see kind of on the inboard of the right horizontal stabilizer, you can see the damage from the number 2 engine and the debris from that engine hitting that control surface. So this confirms the pitch problems that they were dealing with earlier. Also around this time at 1542, the captain made the decision to jettison their fuel, which brought them down from, I think he said 37,000 pounds. It brought them down, or gallons, it might be gallons or pounds, down to 33,500 remaining before they landed. They also made the decision to put the landing gear down at this time to prep for wherever they were going to put the aircraft down at that time, because he also told the ATC controller that, like, hey, I got no hydraulic control. We're controlling this freaking thing off of 2 wing engines, so wherever I put this down is where I'm going to put this down. And the photo above shows the route that they took when they had the engine failure. They made that, you can see that descending right turn the first officer was talking about, turning to the right, and then it just shows this squibbly zigzag pattern of them just trying to control the aircraft with 2 engines and no controllable hydraulic pressure. There's another audio recording in here, just the ATC controller talking through directions that he's giving him and talking through control surfaces and the overall situation of what it looks like in the cockpit to the crew.
232 Heavy, do you think you'll be able to hold about a 240 heading? Yeah, we're trying to turn to it right now. Roger. When you get turned to that 240 heading, sir, the airport will be about 12 o'clock at 38 miles. Okay, we're trying to control it just by power alone now. We have no hydraulics at all, so we're doing our best here. Roger, and we've notified the equipment out in that area too, sir. The equipment's here on the airport standing by, and they're sending some out to that area. We're going to have to continue one more right turn. We've got the elevators pretty much under control within 300 or 400 feet, but we still can't do much of the steering. United 232 Heavy, Roger. Understand you do have the elevators possibly under control. We've got to hold altitude. Negative. We don't have it. We are better, that's all.
Alright, 1559, this is when they really made their decision to land at Sioux Airport. So they had told ATC that they had visual confirmation of the airport 9 miles out. At that point, United Airlines, or ATC, they intended for United Airlines 232 to use runway 31 to land. Runway 31 at the time, back in 1989, that runway had roughly 8,999 feet available to it. You can see that runway in the picture here above me, depicted in blue. But what ended up happening is the vector that they were on and the heading that they were on, really with what they were able to control, brought them in on a heading to land runway 22. The controller advised them that that was a closed runway, but they were going to clear all the construction equipment off it to allow them to land at that runway. That runway is depicted in green here on the photo above me. That runway had significantly less distance to land. I think the captain, Haynes, one of the last calls that we'll see in one of the videos that I have in the presentation, he asked, what is the runway distance on runway 22? And the controller actually gets back to him. I forget what he said the runway distance actually was. I think it was like 6,000 something feet that he had to land, but he also advised and told him that he had plenty of space and there was a big field off to his left where he was going to be landing and putting the aircraft down. Dennis Fitch in the NTSB report also mentioned that he believed that the airplane was lined up on a normal glide path, a good glide path to land on runway 22, and they had their flaps and their slats retracted during this maneuver to land.
United 232 Heavy, Roger. The airport's currently at your 1 o'clock position, 10 miles. And United 232 Heavy, if you can't make the airport, sir, there is an interstate that runs north to south to the east side of the airport. It's a 4-lane interstate. We're just passing it right now. We're going to crash the
United 232 Heavy, roger. And advise when you get the airport in sight.
Got a runway in sight. We'll be with you very shortly. Thanks a lot for your help.
All right, as you can see highlighted in yellow, kind of threw it up there when the audio recording picked it up. That's US Route 75. The ATC controller from their route going into the airport had also mentioned that there was a large size highway that they could potentially put the aircraft down on as well. But like Captain Haynes had mentioned, they had already passed over it and were on their way to Sioux Airport.
Roger, sir. Yeah, that's a closed runway. That'll work, sir. We're getting the equipment off the runway, and they'll line up for that one.
How long is it?
6,600 feet, 6,600, and the equipment's coming off.
Isolate this.
Alright, so that was a video of the landing, 1600 Central Daylight Time. That was the crash landing just off to the left of the threshold of runway 22. Captain Haynes put the aircraft down. In the last 20 seconds from the NTSB report, it said that the average airspeed during that descent was 215 knots indicated, with a 1,620 foot per minute rate of descent. First contact was made by the right wing, followed by the right main landing gear, and then the fuselage, unfortunately, which resulted in a lot of the fatalities during this flight. The fuselage broke into 4 separate pieces when it hit the ground. All right, moving on to the injury report. So from this chart, you can see the injury reports. Of the 296 total passengers, you can see that 111 unfortunately lost their lives. That includes 1 crew, and the rest were passengers in the back. Of those seriously injured were 47 out of the 296, 6 being the crew and 41 passengers. That little asterisk by the 41 is one of the passengers was included in the serious injury statistic, but later died in a hospital 31 days after the accident from his injuries. The minor injuries, 4 were sustained by the crew, and then passengers 121 for a total of 125. And then 13 sustaining no injuries whatsoever from the passenger section. These statistics, I do think that without the crew's heroism and like quick thinking and their competence and their technical systems and just being able to really use what they had at the time really decreased this number from what it could have been. Right, now going into the NTSB side of the house. So obviously the NTSB investigation kicked in shortly after. This is the probable cause statement from the findings and recommendations document that came out of the NTSB findings. And this really focuses on what the major problem was that resulted in the mechanical issue that the pilots were dealing with. And it's best highlighted here when it says that United Airlines engine overhaul facility, which resulted in the failure to detect a fatigue crack originating from a previously undetected metallurgical defect located in a critical area of the Stage 1 fan disc that was manufactured by General Electric aircraft engines. So that in itself, which we'll go in more in depth while we talk through this NTSB investigation, but that fatigue crack that they let go for a long period of time is really what resulted in the number 2 engine failure. All right, things that we're going to talk about for the NTSB investigation are the following. We're going to talk about, obviously, the GO team on-site investigation, people that were actually on the ground hours after the investigation or after the crash took place. And then we'll talk about some of the laboratory work findings of stuff that was brought back from the site into a lab for further analysis. And then some safety recommendations that came out of this investigation that we've used in commercial air travel moving forward, and what United Airlines has implemented in DC-10 models back in that day, and then future models that came afterwards that filled their fleet. All right, talking about the GO team's on-site workers, the people that actually showed up on ground hours after the crash. So for these personnel, they were obviously able to pull radar data. They were able to talk to ATC controllers. They were actually able to physically observe and gather wreckage data from the different parts of the fuselage, the control surfaces, and the engine. From their investigation on site, they really confirmed just by looking at things mechanically that this was a catastrophic hydraulic failure as a result of the number 2 engine explosion. They concluded that the crew's only option was to use asymmetric thrust, which we talked through earlier. Asymmetric thrust being using the number 1 and the number 3 engines that were still available to them at the time. Like we talked about with that first officer right descending turn, the captain was able to decrease thrust in the number 1 engine to again level the wings. They confirmed this in the GO team on-site work in the NTSB investigation. They also said the precise throttle control and teamwork enabled the aircraft to reach runway 22, although the landing resulted in a 4-part breakup of the fuselage. So really a lot of what we gathered was a result of what these GO teams and on-site workers were able to actually physically look at. All right, this is where the details come into place. You can't really see this, so I'm going to move myself for a second. Okay. But so for the laboratory work, this is where we really get into an in-depth look at that number 1 or that number 2 engine fatigue crack, which the NTSB report states, like I mentioned earlier, it originated at a hard alpha metallurgical, that word's going to kill me, inclusion. So the crack, you can obviously see, put my mouse over here, but you can see the crack on this above image right here. It actually got to a point of it being as big as 0.5 inches long. And despite clear indication of the crack, including they tried to use visible mark or fluorescent dye penetrant test in prior maintenance, the defect was not identified by the United Airlines overhaul facility. The last inspection, according to the NTSB, was on April 1988. It was approximately 760 flight cycles before this accident. By then, the crack had measured 0.5 inches, like I had mentioned, and lab studies concluded that the repeated engine cycles over the course of time just caused this crack to grow gradually until unfortunately exploded while airborne in flight United Airlines 232. The diagram directly above me shows kind of the breakdown of where those engine blades are for the turbine engine propulsion system. It also highlights that stage 1 fan disc, which is highlighted in blue there. As you can see, as I pointed out the crack, it's also mentioned in that diagram. That is the component in that propulsion system that failed while they were in flight. And then in the diagram to the left of me, or your left, it shows the hydraulic lines. You can see here that this was severed by the number 2 engine debris. That was the number 1 line. And then also this area was missing from the airplane, which was a critical area for the number 2 and the number 3 hydraulic lines. Those were the only redundant hydraulic line systems that they had for controllability. When they lost all of them, they couldn't control the aircraft any longer, as we mentioned. But these are the main things that came out of the lab results. Um, the broader implications of all this is obviously there were CJ6 engines outfitted in other American or other United Airlines aircraft at that time. So they pretty much had to ground the fleet, check the engines, and make sure similar defects were not found. Unfortunately, similar defects were found on other United Airlines CJ6 engines. Um, so that just resulted in a huge um, just look at the maintenance and quality control abilities of United Airlines maintenance facility at that time. No. Okay, move myself back over here. All right, so safety recommendations. Some of this is more detailed than what I have the brain capacity to just produce by looking into the camera. So I am going to read some of the NTSB findings, but I kind of broke it down into different categories. The categories that I broke it down into are the testing of essential like propulsion system components, critical components like the fan disc that failed in the number 2 engine, really safety recommendations moving forward on how to inspect those critical rotating parts in engine systems for aircraft. Also, the NTSB report and findings talks about aircraft control systems, specifically in regards to those hydraulic lines and the redundancy that's built in and the protection of those systems in case something like this does happen in the future, that they can be protected. Also, manufacturing record keeping and quality control. This goes into the maintenance section of keeping an accurate control of when we're doing these tests on the engines to prevent things like this, the fan disc and other major related issues, not only just in the CJ6 engine, but in other make and models that United Airlines flew in the future. And then cabin safety was a big one that came out of this. They talked about like infant security for young children, and kind of the recommendations that they had moving forward for the restraining infants and the rules regards to that in the airline community. And then also just enhancing airport rescue firefighting facilities capabilities based on what they saw in this crash as well. And then the final thing that I kind of broke it down into was the regulatory and industry collaboration. So what that kind of means, you can kind of see it in a picture here. There's an advisory circular, more specifically 20-128, in collaboration with industry working groups. They made this to strengthen engine airframe safety. So that was the big thing that came out of this. The advisory circular looked into design considerations for minimizing hazards caused by uncontained turbine engine and APU auxiliary power unit rotor failures. So big things came out of this, obviously, that we've continued to use even in modern day aviation and in the airline community. Another big one was for the aircraft controls. This was a big one for me. Obviously, the biggest failure was when the debris from the number 2 engine hit the hydraulic lines. They were unable to control the aircraft, as I have reiterated over and over again. So a big support and safety recommendation moving forward in this investigation was to support research and development alternative sources for flight controls on these wide-body aircrafts that United Airlines was using. They needed to evaluate like their current aircraft fleet, which they did because they grounded most of them. They needed to make sure that they had sufficient redundancy and shielding of these hydraulic and flight control systems for in the case of uncontained debris that might impact them in the future, so that the pilot can still control the aircraft. All right, and that concludes my PowerPoint presentation. I just wanted to end this. This is a picture of Captain Al Haynes. This is a quote that he had said in regards to United Airlines Flight 232. He said, "A pilot is only as good as his crew. We were a crew of four doing the best that we could." And I agree that they did do the best that they could. They absolutely crushed it with what they had available to them, utilizing asymmetric flight, and really utilizing everyone that they had available to them, like pulling that Dennis guy into the cockpit, utilizing the second officer, the first officer, using the flight attendants. Uh, as a crew, they really worked to solve the problem as best that they could. Unfortunately, there were 111 fatalities. God rest their souls, forever in flight. God bless them. But this concludes my PowerPoint presentation on the American Airlines, or United Airlines. I probably keep saying American, but United Airlines 232. Here are my references. I also have the PowerPoint presentation uploaded for you to review, Professor. So thank you all for your attention. Adam Logan signing off. Peace.